Thanks, Jim. I guess I don't have to read the entire first paragraph of my introduction anymore. We'll just get right into it. Following the success of his Dollars trilogy, and especially The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Sergio Leone decided that he was done with the Western genre and was moved to make an adaptation of a seedy gangster autobiography called The Hoods. But Paramount Pictures signed a contract with Leone because of the Westerns and wanted another one from him. They promised him that if he made them a Western, he could make his gangster picture after that. He relented and soon found himself conceptualizing a new trilogy, one that reflected on three important historical periods that touched America. The first would be the Western, called Once Upon a Time in the West, covering the expansion into the West through the railroad. The second would focus on the Mexican Revolution and be called Once Upon a Time, the Revolution. The last would be Leone's adaptation of The Hoods, taking place during the Prohibition, called Once Upon a Time in America. During the release of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, he connected with Bernardo Bertolucci, a young filmmaker, and Dario Argento, a film critic, who helped him flesh out the story for Once Upon a Time in the West. His reluctance to go back to Westerns was abated somewhat when these two persuaded him to make a more personal Western, a film more for himself than for the public, a reaction to his previous work. Reportedly, one of Leone's first ideas to separate this film from his last was to cast Clint Eastwood, Eli Wallach, and Lee Van Cleef as evil gang gunslingers waiting for a train and kill them off in the first 5 minutes. That never came to pass, but the concept remained of breaking not only with his own previous films, but with the iconic paradigms of cinematic westerns, while working within the genre itself. Bertolucci claims it was his idea to center everything around a strong female character, certainly not the norm in westerns of the time, but it wasn't the only reversal of expectation that Leone had in mind. The expansion of the locomotive no longer represented the ingenuity and work ethic of the American people. It was the engine of unquenchable greed and unspeakable violence. Working with Paramount Pictures afforded Leone the opportunity of working with Henry Fonda, whom he cast against type as the amoral Frank. And the optimistic spirit of exploration, espoused in so many of John Ford's early films, is replaced by a cynicism where most of the characters die and where everyone ends up alone. There are techniques that Leone used to further separate his film from the traditional look and feel of the Western. He was always a director that took into account all aspects of filmmaking, including music. It had been in his mind to have music written for each of the films that he had made before the film was actually shot. But the closest he had come was having the music written, but not recorded for the final standoff in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. For Once Upon a Time in the West, however, he had not only had the score written and recorded by Ennio Morricone, but he had the recordings playing on the set as the cameras were rolling, so that the pace of the action and performances were set by the tempo of the music. Also, Leone shot as much as he could in the bright daytime, maximizing the amount of light available for his film. This, combined with a Techniscope camera that used a spherical lens to create a widescreen image, allowed for an incredible depth of focus, which he used to create great shots utilizing objects in the foreground as well as in the distance, their movement often at odds with each other, underscoring the conflict inherent in bringing civilization to an uncivilized land. 40 years later, there's no doubt that Sergio Leone changed the Western film, and the Dryden Theater is proud to be able to bring you Once Upon a Time in the West as it was meant to be seen. Enjoy the show.